Hello viewers, welcome to this particular lecture on microbiology. In this lecture, I shall be discussing different aspects of dermatophytes and their implication. Now to start with, we must understand what is dermatophytes. Dermatophytes actually originate from the Greek word dermatos meaning skin and phyton or phyton meaning plant. So it is actually a group of fungi which causes infection in animal and human skin. And basically they are anamorphic, meaning they are asexual. There is no sexual stage. This group of fungi mainly include three major key players, which include the microsporum, epidermophyton and trichophyton. There may be three major types. They are anthropophilic, which means that they mainly invade the human, causing skin infection. They may be zoophilic, which actually cause infection to cats, dogs and cattle. And the third one is geophilic, which means they are mainly with the soil and they may come in contact with human skin and they cause human inflammatory reaction.
Sir, I have a question. Does this dermatophyte ever invade the living tissues?
Actually, you see, the outside skin is a dead tissue. The moment it percolates, there is a possibility it will get into blood. And if it gets into blood, it can get into other system which is living. Now, let us consider the different frequency. Now, as I told you, trichophyton is a major key player. And we can understand this trichophyton rubrum is actually responsible for 76% infection. And they may be as macroconidia and microconidia. But the trichophyton mentagrophytes, they are actually responsible for 27% infection, and the intercalary spores here of trichophyton verrucosum is accounting for 7% of dermatophytic infection. Globally I am telling. And there may be the trichophyton tonsorens, which is only 3% of the total infection. And the last, within 1%, is all the other types, microsporum, epidermophyton, etc. And one such is the macroconidia of epidermophyton, which actually is a part of that 1%. Now let us consider how this particular disease may spread. It may spread through direct contact. It may spread through clothing. It may spread through seeds. It may spread through insect. It may spread through animal handling. So different ways. Even when we are wearing unhygienic clothes or when we are using unhygienic linen, that can also be the cause of this particular infection. Now let us discuss the different types of this particular infection. The first one is Tinea pedis. Now these are not scientific name of these organisms, these are the diseases. So Tinea pedis meaning the infection of the leg, and this particular infection will cause reddening and cracking of the skin in between fingers. It's a very common phenomenon when we are wearing socks all the time, and because of moisture this infection will grow. And sometimes it may spread along the entire feet, the sole, and this type of infection is often called the moccasin pattern of infection.
Sir, I have a question. What is this moccasin pattern?
Yeah, actually moccasin meaning it's a type of a shoe, and because it is having close proximity with the toe, so it is just appearing as a shoe because the multiple flakes of that particular disease will develop along the sole. Got it? Good. Now this particular disease is caused by epidermophyton flucosum, the macroconidia, and it is a common problem in athletes, so it is also called athlete's foot. And this can actually be prevented by different typical topical ointments like ketoconazole, or it can be by taking some hydrocortisone within that ointment. So hydrocortisone will reduce the hypersensitivity and ketoconazole will treat the infection. Now let us come to the next one, which is called Tinea corporis. Now Tinea corporis is so called because it actually may occur anywhere in the body, and this particular infection is having a typical red margin and pinkish central part, and if there is hair it will be lost at the time of infection. So this is the typical lesion of Tinea corporis, and it is caused by this trichophyton, other species, and this is the culture of trichophyton, and this is the macroconidia. and it actually will have some risk factors. Like say for example, it will be quite probable in a crowded bus through contact. Those people who sweat profusely may show this infection, or where you are having close proximity or contact, like in the game of football, physical contact is too high, like in rugby, physical contact is too high, there may be a problem. Or if you are wearing too tight clothes, less aeration, more moisture, there will be more infection. Or sometimes if a person who is suffering from HIV will show this type of infection more. And actually it is more advised to prevent the disease by cleaning of hands, by avoiding touch, wearing loose fitting clothes, and at the same time maintaining good hygiene. This can prevent any type of disease, of course. Now if the disease is there, then there may be some typical ointments like the miconazole, like the tolnaflate, like the butenafine, like the clotrimazole. These are all those compounds which can be used to treat this particular Tinea corporis infection. Sometimes systemic drugs like itraconazole may also be taken to control infection.
Sir, but oral medications, how do these affect the superficial fungal infections?
Yeah, that's a point actually. You see, oral medication will get into your gut, will be absorbed by the blood vessels in the small intestine, that is hepatic portal system, and then it will come to blood. Now blood vessel will reach everywhere. So if the infection is deep seated and it goes via blood vessel, then that part will be cured. So if it is totally superficial, it will not be cured, but if it has gone in, it can be cured by this mechanism. Okay. Now let us come to the next one, which is called the Tinea faciei, because it is invading the face. Actually it is same as Tinea corporis. You can see clearly the symptoms are quite similar, but this particular organism which caused this infection can be very many organisms. It can be aspergillus, it can be the microsporum gypsum. And why it is gypsum? Because it looks like cement dust. So this is the culture of microsporum, and it can also be treated by the topical ointment of ketoconazole. Azole group is very effective in controlling this. We come to the next type, which is called the Tinea capitis, because actually it is invading the scalp. And you can see here multiple lesion in the scalp, loss of hair, and this typical swelling and redness. And it can be caused by Trichophyton rubrum with the typical macroconidia here. And this particular symptom of Tinea capitis can be of different types. One type is, this is called the microsporosis. It is actually characterized by red papule at the center, where you can see this particular hyphae and spore inside. It can be another type called trichophytosis, because it is invaded by Trichophyton violaceium. And what happens is, these chlamydospores of violaceium will grow in the scalp, and there will be lesion, because there will be itching, and if there is itching, there will be blood coming out. So typical wound or lesion may develop with follicles. It's a very bad sight to look. And the third type is the typical favus. Favus actually is a crust on the head. The yellowish green crust is formed by the mycelia and spore of Trichophyton schwenleni. So these three types of infection may be there in the scalp. And how it is treated? Usually the targeted drug is tarbenafine, and tarbenafine is actually marketed as Lamisil. This is the most common drug used to market this particular tarbenafine, and that also is marketed globally by Novartis. Now coming to the next important type of disease, which is Tinea manuum. It is actually causing infection of the fingers, and these fingers, you can see, it is spreading as cracks, it is spreading as redness or pinkish lesion. And when we take the scraping of the skin, we will see this conidia of Microsporum canis, which is the causal organism, and it will produce a typical yellowish white culture of this Microsporum. It can be grown in petri plate, and it is normally treated with typical selenium sulfide lotion. Selenium sulfide can prevent this particular disease, and it can also be prevented by oral medicines like griseofulvine, because blood vessels are relatively more in case of the hands. Now that brings me to the next important type of disease, which is the onychomycosis. Onychomycosis actually is the infection of the nail. This particular nail gets infected at different point, and ultimately that nail will be uprooted, or that can actually show total destruction of the calcium in that particular nail. And this is the typical symptom of onychomycosis. And it is actually caused by opportunistic fungus. One of them is candida. And these are the spores of candida which can grow in those particular wet areas of the nail. It can also be caused by this particular Trichophyton interdigital. Interdigital meaning in between digits, but it can spread to nails. Or it can be caused by Trichophyton sudanensis. Sudanensis meaning maybe it was reported in Africa, Sudan. It can also be caused by another typical fungus showing chain of spore called Scapulariopsis. And Scapulariopsis can be grown in this culture, or it can also be brought about by Neocytalidium arthrospore. These are arthrospores because they are produced in chain. But one important property you can see here, they reproduce very fast. And they reproduce very fast, and they grow and they destroy the nail. So they are calcium depleting. Now how can they be detected? Ideal way of detecting this particular fungus is KOH preparation. By potassium hydroxide, you are using 10 to 30%. That will destroy the keratin and they will leave the fungal hyphae. So when you remove the keratin, you can clearly see the texture of the fungus. And that is important because you will know that which type of fungal infection has caused this particular onychomycosis. Or sometimes it can show typical Schiff reaction, Schiff staining. Schiff staining will actually call periodic acid Schiff staining. It will typically stain that particular fungal spore into purple color, and you can clearly see that what is the quantum of the infection at a particular point after taking or applying some antifungal drug. So this staining is also helping us to detect this particular fungus, and sometimes by applying this stain, even the growth of the fungus can also be reduced. Now let us consider the different types. It can be of distal subungual onychomycosis. This is the region where it is affected just below the nail. Or it can be white superficial onychomycosis represented by white spots on the lunula of the nail. It can be proximal subungual onychomycosis, being at the back of the nail where there is a fold of the skin. Or it can be inside the nail through candida spore, and specifically it is called candida onychomycosis. So this particular disease can be treated in different ways. Now because the nail is affected, I can totally remove that particular nail and allow the antifungal drug to settle down, and then the nail will grow automatically, the infection might go. I can actually use a cotton swab and apply the drug inside, so this particular drug will percolate and the infection can be arrested. Or sometimes it is just applied at the tip of the nail and it will percolate inside. So there are different ways, but basically surgical remedy is risky because there may be secondary infection. Now there are drugs, and these drugs include both systemic as well as normal topical, because topical drug is more important, and that may be clotrimazole, that may be butenafine, that may be cyclopirox. And this cyclopirox actually is a solution, and this particular solution is commonly marketed as Penlac, and it is, it is just like a lacquer, meaning you are applying nail polish, but this nail polish is containing the medication. So people will not apparently understand that you are applying the drug because it is used as a lacquer, and that is good also. So there are other drugs as well. That means amorolfine is one drug, but ultimately at the end of the day, terbinafine is the best drug, because terbinafine, you can clearly see this is actually the condition of the nail initially. After say 12 weeks of treatment, say 250 milligram per day, it is a long-term therapy. This drug will be acting on the nail, and you can see it is working miraculously. After 72 weeks, almost the new nail has developed and hardly there is any sign of infection. So terbinafine at the end of the day is the most useful drug in the treatment of onychomycosis.
Sir, I have a question. As because these drugs are being consumed for a long period of time, will it induce any side effects?
Any particular allopathic drug, if it is taken for a long period, it will induce side effect. And so, if instead of 250, if suppose you are taking 500 milligram per day and that also for 12 weeks, immediately any drug will be metabolized in the liver. So, there will be serious problem in the liver, may cause hepatotoxicity, liver abscess, etc. So, if your liver is weak, then the drug dose or the drug regimen has to be regulated. Got it? So, we have actually discussed different types of dermatophytes, different types of infection, and I have also discussed the symptoms and how these particular diseases can be controlled. Thank you.